Hello, Joe. Welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Andy, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's great to have you here. We have rebranded this podcast. It was called Repod, but we've gone now for Engage, in part because we have this cross-university engagement forum now and lots of other things feeding into it. So this is part of a new season. It's great to kick it off with conversations about essentially teaching, which is partly why we're here today. Tell us a bit about what you're talking about today as part of the Festival of Learning and Teaching, which is happening all week.
Yeah, it's going to be great to talk. It's a manifesto, pretty much. We're very good at lots of things. Our students are great. Our academics are great. The services that we have to support students are great, but we're not producing students who have the soft skills that they need in order to do really, really well in employment when they graduate. And that's purely, I think, because we're not connecting those great things together. We're not connecting the students with the academics and the services. And there's a pretty simple way to do that, I think. So I'm going to be talking today to try and to talk about what we've done so far in terms of trying to join those strands together and create something that students can have, a tangible thing that they can have and take with them, and also to open it out to the festival. You know, it's an opportunity to talk to loads of people who are passionate about teaching. So the final part of my talk is basically going to be, okay, so how do we make this work? What teams do we get together? How do we make sure that we have inclusivity? How do we make sure we engage potential employers? And how do we make it work practically? So I'm hoping that it's really going to kind of boost our thoughts about that.
And I can't think of a better person to be talking about this, because certainly you are someone that has remarkable soft skills. So let's talk a little bit about your background, because it'd be nice to know for people what you do and what you teach on, and I guess really how these things have come to matter for you in your own career as well. So where did you sort of begin?
So I'm a microbiologist. You can see some lovely pictures of some bacteria behind me in my office here. I'm fascinated by bacteria, how they interact with us, and how that interaction is messed up and changed by antibiotics. So I've been a microbiologist for a long time. Arrived at Salford as lecturer in antimicrobial resistance 6 years ago, and as well as teaching on those subjects about antibiotic resistance and about infection biology, I've also really enjoyed teaching about scholarship and, as you say, the soft skills and communication, which obviously you are also very passionate about, and how to kind of bring out in students those elements, so their creativity, their communication skills, their ability to think a little bit differently, be a little bit push the boundaries a little bit when they want to get what they want. And I love talking about that, and I'm a person who can blather on for ages about science anyway. I've done radio and TV and podcasts and stand-up comedy stuff about bacteria. So it's.
I didn't know about the stand-up comedy. Yeah. I want to see more of that.
Oh, didn't you? Yeah, I was the science bit on a stand-up comedy show about the science of snogging, but maybe that's for a different
forget employability. Let's talk about the science of snogging. That would be. But I mean, even those sort of inclinations, though, did you feel like, I mean, when you were studying initially, was employability something you sort of thought about? I mean, I guess I wonder, really, obviously students, I guess, join universities thinking they want to get a job at the end. And I suppose we try to guide them a little bit towards that, but thinking about what those skills are, is that something that you feel like we sort of need to design more into the curriculum, really, to get them sort of engaged with what they might be?
I think it's really difficult these days. When students arrive first year, a great proportion of them are have been children who've been trained to pass exams, not necessarily to think for themselves quite as much as they should possibly, not to have those professional skills, not to have take their own initiative, perhaps. So I don't necessarily think that all students do come to university thinking that they necessarily want a specific job or to know what they want to do. However, there is a big incentive for universities to churn out professional graduates who can communicate well and who can act in a professional way, in a professional setting. I mean, for the students' sake, mostly, of course, but also because universities are on this kind of stuff. Like I said, we do a very, very good job at giving them the knowledge that they need. I think learning at Salford is excellent, but those soft skills aren't picked up on. And it's a shame because we have them all. We have them all here, but we just need to find a way to connect those things together in an official way. So there's a big job for us to do. I think as the years go on, the gap gets bigger, I guess, between freshers as they arrive and their kind of attitudes towards professionalism and work, and what's expected when they graduate. And it's great that we have, like I said, it's great that we have these abilities and we have these means to help students. But because they don't already have that initiative, they're not necessarily going to take them up unless we form it into something that they can recognize.
I mean, I think it's really important what you've said about what students have come to university with in terms of their expectations of learning, in terms of passing exams, and obviously a big part of that then is appreciating what's happening in the education sector before they reach university. And perhaps I often feel that universities could and should be more involved with those sectors, with those sort of levels as well, to get us more into what's happening in schools and to do all sorts of things, frankly. But it's just trying to understand that trajectory so that we can then respond to it effectively. So is your talk sort of focusing around, I mean, I'm sure there are principles that can apply across subjects, but what are some of the things that you think we can do to develop those sorts of skills, either through the teaching or through just sort of engaging students differently?
Well, this all came about through discussions I had with my colleague and friend, Dr. Sarah Withers. We are, or we were for several years, placement tutors. So within our, within human and natural sciences, we were involved in trying to get students out on placement, trying to kind of help them with the skills that they needed to find that kind of employment. For biomedicine, for microbiology, human biology, those kinds of areas. And this has all kind of come from conversations that Sarah and I had about this, where we were saying it's getting worse. We have placement providers coming back to us saying we can't work with some of these people. It's very difficult. They don't have those skills. They clearly have the knowledge and they clearly know what they're doing and they know their subject knowledge, but they don't necessarily have those working skills, those professional working skills. So we had lots of conversations about this, as you can imagine, kind of thinking, how can we do this? And we're thinking, well, there's loads. We have We have a fantastic library team. We've got a really good career service. We've got an amazing student union. We've got the Advantage system that we have, where students can book on all sorts of kinds of courses and workshops, etc. But they're just not being taken up as well as they should do. So we put together a proposal that we developed, something which we originally called the Salford Employability Award. And what that would allow students to do would be to evidence their engagement in all of these things that we already do. So, CV writing, IT stuff, communications, etc., etc. So there'd be a core set of workshops, courses, etc., that they would have to evidence that they have done. There would then be optional things like being involved in societies, being involved in kind of extracurricular activities within the university. So, throughout the university, we have lots of these things. So in the School of Engineering and Environment, we have book clubs, and we have kind of TED Talk style events and things, and those would be really kind of good examples of these optional activities, and part-time work and volunteering work, etc.
Yeah.
And then, so the idea is that instead of just saying, well, there's all that out there, we say, okay, these, you have to do X, Y, and Z. There's also the optional group of things that you can choose from, evidence those, put them into a portfolio, and then crucially reflect on that. So the end of the award and the assessment of the award would be their reflection of that journey. And that would then allow them to make that link between what they're doing here, what they're doing in our labs, what they're doing in our classrooms, in our lecture theatres, and how that has improved them as professionals, and how that then allows them to really kind of get across to employers in a confident way how good they actually are. So we've developed this award, which is now had a rebrand. It's called Employ Us. Us, I mean, University of Salford, and us.
Yeah, we love the word us.
So we're hoping to, we've done some pilot work on it, and we're hoping then to roll it out throughout the university in the next year or so. So today's going to be really interesting, talking to people at the festival about how we can make that really good, because we, at the end of the day, we owe it to our students to give them those skills, and if they haven't got the initiative to go out and do it for themselves, then we give them a framework in which to do it.
I mean, it sounds fantastic. We're getting lots of comments in on the chat from Barbara, we've got Nike, we've got Martin, all saying how important these things are. And actually a few of the ex-students that have benefited from doing these sorts of things. I mean, it sounds like such a fantastic idea. Yeah, it's lovely to read these comments. So as a student, you can apply for this or develop your portfolio no matter what program you are on. You can sort of build this.
Yeah. So the idea would be that when you begin your program, it's an option. It's an unavoidable option. that's the idea.
Yeah.
And then you complete the award over 2 years. So there's plenty of time to do it. Because we already have all of the resources available, it's not that it's not a matter of, oh, here's a new thing, right? It's not a new initiative. It's not a new thing that everyone has to suddenly do, because we already have those things available. It would involve academic leads from each school, someone who's really passionate from each school to kind of get involved with it. But what we're really hoping is that, and I'm really glad that previous students have commented here, What we'd really like is that alumni and industry, people who are partners, people who collaborate with us in our amazing research as well, will get involved with this and kind of help to assess these the reflections. And of course, that's great for the students because then they already have that interaction with a potential employer. And it's great for the industry because they can see where the students are at and where they're up to and what they've done. Similarly, in a way to how you were saying about, wouldn't it be great to kind of talk more to secondary schools? And it'd be good for us because we would then have that input from industry as well. It's making those links on either side of the student journey.
Yeah. And we've got a great comment from Jim, who's again really supportive of what you're doing and say how important these things are. He did engineering and building, but his role now is in international sales, marketing, and engineering. So I think having an appreciation for how your career may develop and transform, and the skills that you need to be able to do that, apart from anything, but also to make sure that you sort of see your development as continuous. You may have a sense of where you're going to go immediately after university, but that can change quite quickly if you keep progressing.
Yeah, absolutely. When I finished university back in the dark ages, a friend had said to me, "Oh, would you ever do a PhD?" And I said, "Not in a million years. I have no interest whatsoever." But things change, don't they?
Yeah.
Here I am as an academic at university. However many years past my PhD, and it just goes to show that the skills that you pick up at university are a lot wider than the ones that you get in the classroom. And it's not just about CV writing. It's not just about these kind of reasonably kind of dry things. It's about talking to your tutors. It's about talking to other students. It's about learning about where other people have come from. And this is particularly important at master's level because one of the great things about the masters throughout the university is that we have people from all over the world coming together, sitting in a room together and learning the same thing. And there's so much to be learned by talking to other students, learning about working practices, about cultures, and all of these things help you to gain a really good understanding of how to go out there and find out what you want and who you are.
Yeah, I think that's where, for me, the universities, that's exactly what you should be doing at universities. It's a process of self-discovery, and hopefully a place where you can discover completely new things about yourself as well that you perhaps didn't know were there. and that could be that could be it's such, I think, a wonderful sort of period in your life where you have the space to do that. And I think, of course, many things can happen if you're able to fill it with that kind of willingness to sort of go beyond, I suppose, your comfort zone, which is another kind of component of this, which is challenging, I think, as a teacher, because you have to sort of strike a balance between not pushing people too far to the point where they hate what they're doing because it's so far beyond that comfort zone, but enough that they can then see, well, I can stand up and give a presentation if I can sort of develop into it through a series of sort of steps. And then once you get to that point, it's not a big deal. You can sort of get over it.
I think having these skills embedded into programs is vital. So having academics when they're designing their programs, when they're designing their modules, thinking about, okay, how can I link that in such a way that it will start to kind of get those gears in motion in the students' minds.
Yeah.
But the thing I think is really important about the Employus Award is that it's separate to your program. So everyone at the university does the same award in pretty much the same way. It's not necessarily linked to your subject, and that means that there's that bit of separation, right, from the academic side. And what we hope is that means that students might be a little bit more willing to push themselves a little bit in that respect, without fear of thinking, well, I don't want to make a fool of myself because I might lose marks or whatever. So having it as a non-credit bearing extracurricular but compulsory activity, I think allows them to maybe be a little bit more creative.
I mean, I'm interested in that because, again, the sort of detail of these things are so important. How is it made? I mean, how is it made essentially that sort of optional but compulsory? You know, because I think it's important from the student's perspective in particular, because I think if you are starting, you want to know what you have to get done in order to progress. So how is that sort of communicated? And I guess part of the challenge is to make sure that actually this reaches students through modules, through programs. But how's that sort of getting across then to students?
Yeah, that's going to be a challenge, because it's a bit of a circular argument because one of the things that we want to encourage is engagement.
Yes.
But the students have to engage in the award in order to.
Yeah.
It's like
I mean, I think the idea of an award is great, because I think that then if you can graduate with this award and say, you know, I have the employability award from the university, that's that already conveys that there's a kind of system of kind of assessment and monitoring of that aspect of you as a you know, potential employee, that the university's kind of rubber stamped and said you've got this award. That's already, I think, a powerful thing to get across. So if you situate it in that, then I think there's quite a bit of the work done actually. And if they do then have a portfolio,
absolutely,
then it's it's kind of a great thing to show.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great thing, because I said before we kind of ran a small pilot just to kind of get some baseline data really about the levels of confidence and communication and initiative among our students. That involved a questionnaire, but also a mock interview. And these things are lacking, right? So even among students who are great students and, you know, they're enthusiastic, those skills still aren't there. So I think having an opportunity not only to have the certificate and to have the thing on the CV, but also to have reflected on the process, I think that's the vital thing as well, because it means that what they can do, which a lot of students unfortunately can't do at the moment, is link what they've done in the classroom, in the lecture theatre, in the lab, to a potential job. So, you know, you tend to get things like, okay, so tell me about a time when you have whatever, you know, and the answer is, we had to do this thing in the lab once, or we had to learn about something. And what we want to do as part of this process is change that attitude a little bit, because if they've reflected on those experiences in the context of the other resources that they've used, that becomes more like, well, this time when I was able to learn about something, this is what I did about it. This was my role, this is how much I enjoyed it, and this was the value of it, and then this is what happened. And I think that would be really useful skill that I've gained to use when you employ me. It's that difference. It's about linking what they've done to that employer and to that role.
Yeah, we got some more great comments coming in, some from alumni and some we've got one from Danielle, who's submitting a PhD on perceptions of employability, and just says how crucial it is to have those sort of tangible solutions, you know, to this. And I think getting that buy-in is really crucial. I wonder, just sort of, you know, to ask you sort of frankly about this, what do you think are the barriers to getting students to pursue this or to progress with it in the way that we would want them to? What do you think are going to be the challenges?
The challenge so far has been that we tell them that there are things available.
Yeah,
and that doesn't work. It's like telling students, well, here's a module, you've got X number of lectures, X number of practicals, etc., and the rest you have to go and do stuff on your own. Okay, bye, go to the library. That doesn't work either, right? They're busy people. They've got jobs. They've got social lives, and they absolutely should have those things. But in order to encourage them to engage in that, there has to be a structure. There has to be a framework.
Yeah.
And I think having that end point, and for them to be able to see the value of that endpoint as being as valuable as their degree, will help. And I think that's a lot of that is going to be down to communication at the start of their degree, and we're going to have to be very careful about how we do that, because a lot of students get very overwhelmed at the start of a degree. We work very hard on trying to give them lots of information, and how, and to keep them in those first few scary weeks and make sure they don't run away scared, and to reassure them. So the challenge is going to be how to get this across without adding an extra pressure. But I'm looking forward to talking to people about that, because it's not just going to come from Sarah and I. It's going to come from it's going to come from academic leads in every school. It's going to come from the library. It's going to come from the student union. It's going to come from the careers service. It's going to come from everybody. It has to be a team effort for throughout the entire university, or it won't work at all.
I mean, it's made me think about one of the things we're doing in the Science, Engineering, Environment School at the moment is building a mobile app for students around the wildlife program, which is partly to try to get students to know the staff a bit better, to sort of build those relationships. But it also makes me think about what the expectations are of students in terms of even just sort of monitoring everything in their life. And I could, it makes me think of Duolingo and how you can sort of level up in these things by sort of doing different activities. And maybe there's a way to sort of build a portfolio in public, perhaps through a LinkedIn account, that then is assessed as the basis of that award. And it could be that finding, and the reason to sort of think about that is, I guess, understanding what incentivizes people to sort of keep it up to date. And if you can do that, by the time you graduate, you've got a LinkedIn profile that's got all this stuff on it that shows people what you've done, and you don't then need to do additional work. One of my big frustrations always is having to sort of change a CV for a specific setting. But if you can have this thing that is there, then maybe it just kind of keeps you sort of motivated because it's out there in the world, but also it keeps you, I guess, being able to see it for yourself in that mobile interface. So I think understanding those behavioral changes, because the worst thing is if it's just sort of buried in a Word document on someone's computer and it's not doing anything.
Actually, Andy, it sounds like you're volunteering yourself for the to be on the development team for this.
I mean, to be honest, I think this mobile app that's in development for the wildlife program could integrate something like this as a pilot as well. So we were at a point with the development of that where that could be a feature that's written into it, and might be an interesting way to go. And I think we could probably get that done in the next couple of weeks even. So, but it sort of just begs the question as to how do you provide that interface for everyday engagement that then has value outside of the process. That's the thing for me, that a LinkedIn account that you're building that you can then show to others, feel proud of, is then also instrumental to your own wider professional sort of portfolio beyond that process. It's not just the value internally, it's the legacy value of it.
Yeah. I mean, we decided very early on that it shouldn't be something that's done through a VLE like Blackboard, because it becomes something else then. But actually, that to take it that step further and have it on a public public forum, or for want of a better term, that they can then actually actively use when they graduate would be amazing. That's fantastic.
I mean, aside from this app that's in development, I feel pretty confident that our digital team would love to get behind some sort of interface that's designed for this. So I'm sure we can talk further about that and get them signed up for it. And I know there's funding to support it too. So it's fantastic to hear this, Joe, and I wish you all the best for the talk today. And I'm sure you get lots of really rich ideas. But it's great. I think that it's helpful for me to sort of hear. We just need to get this out to more program and module leads so they get their students on board with it as soon as they can, really.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Andy. It's been really nice talking to you.
Likewise. Pleasure, Joe. Have a great rest of your day and look forward to seeing you soon.
Great. You too. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye bye.